And then just to touch on that, I do think that either way, that the UFC is going to eventually have an event in an open stadium. So I think South Africa would make the most sense, considering the amount of like of events they can host in multiple different locations. So yeah, I mean, look, it's a good way to kind of test the theory of the Bernabeu at the UFC Europe card, using UFC Africa as kind of like the guinea pig. I'm sure we all don't mind being used as a guinea pig. So I guess we're just gonna have to wait and see on confirmation on that. But yeah, in the alternative reality, UFC Europe does happen before UFC Africa. And I can't reason with it. Dricus has been out of the fight game for some time now, so he does need some activity as champion. I just think a fight with Alex Pereira at middleweight sells though, and you can't blame me. I think if asked, people would much rather watch AP versus DDP at middleweight, and that's regardless of where it is again. People and the fans just want to and will pay to watch AP and DDP scrapping their singularity, so why not piece them together? I understand the moving parts and discussions that need to be had are hard and make it hard for us to confirm it being in Africa, but I don't see a Khamzat fight doing good for the UFC long term, because again, it is a business, you know. We can't just keep on looking at money grabs and crooking and think that that is a sustainable business model. You need to develop storylines. Characters need to be given the machine to be put behind them if it is feasible, obviously for the revenue and the bottom line. I think a Strickland fight would be atrocious. I think even if DDP wins, he loses fans, and so does the UFC. They both lose clout, that is DDP and obviously UFC, for both not being culturally receptive and feeding the flock stale bread, which is a fight with Strickland. No one, literally no one, not even Sean's best friend, Nina Drama, wants to see that fight. Not even Sean's dog or his girlfriend. Sean's girlfriend would rather shop with him in Target, if we all being honest. DDP is a unique yet awkward predicament. He is in a unique yet awkward predicament. He only really has two contenders, technically one. Fighting comes at either UFC Saudi Arabia or UFC Europe will do really well. It would even do really well in Vegas. I just think that there's a very high chance that Khamzat's career gets cut short if he does take this fight with Dricus, and that'll be sad. It will really be sad, guys. And you know, I really think besides that, the addition, obviously, of the 12-6 elbow, and then the rules about the grounded opponents, it does favor Dricus. So like I'm saying, I think the new addition of the 12-6 elbow, as well as the rules of engagement when it comes to grounded opponents, and I do not say this lightly, gives Dricus du Plessis the opportunity to not just become the best middleweight ever, but dare I say the best MMA fighter ever. And this is a very controversial opinion, I do agree, but let's talk about it. The middleweight division is firstly completely out of balance. No one, literally no one, not even the UFC, expected Dricus to win. It was literally maybe only 1,000 people that had faith and kept it. When the Boer won, it caused a lot of problems for the UFC and its matchmakers. It also sent the MMA world into a frenzy. A lot of people demanded an immediate rematch with Adesanya, and a lot of people expected Strickland to be a shoo-in. Like the Volk situation, it doesn't work that way, and it shouldn't work that way. It's what sells and how closely linked that is both to cultural interest and public perception. Click per buys need to be investigated, as well as obviously like the impressions to click and then click per buys. And we need to discover how that can be cultivated. What I am saying is, again, that Dricus only really has two contenders, Khamzat and middleweight Alex, in my opinion. What is my solution? Since I consider Khamzat too big to be allowed to DDP on his GOAT status and his trip to be a GOAT, the Alex fight is becoming too technical to set up. I think Shara Burch should fight either Paulo Costa or Israel Adesanya, and I think this should be the number one contender. I really think Khamzat needs to move back down to welterweight, especially with the problems being experienced by the champ, brother Bilal. I honestly think a Khamzat and Shafkat fights would be more interesting from a stylistic point of view, but more so for the pieces on the chessboard. I don't see a Khamzat and Shafkat fight doing as many pay-per-view buys as Khamzat versus Dricus though, but the same can be said if it was Israel versus Dricus or if it was Shafkat versus Dricus. That just comes down to who Dricus is in Africa, which is the undeniable king and his certified place in African history, as well as his rightful role in pop culture. Dricus is the real seller here, and I think we've all done a good job of proving it. Previously it was who can be put against the champ we're afraid won't sell. My oh my, the tables have turned. I still think we need another middleweight fight though. Look, if you want to make DDP versus Khamzat the matchup, kill a career prematurely, leave welterweight to suffer for pay-per-view buys like dogs, be my guest. Please, actually, be my guest. Yeah, so, look, I just don't see that fight with Khamzat and DDP playing out like you think. Yeah, so I think that let's talk about it some more.